Besigye. My reporting career.
Stop intimidating us.
I am not intimidating you. My reporting career actually took off with the Walk to Work protests, and I interviewed Besigye at length during those protests. I think one of the most consistent messaging you'll ever get from retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye is that there needs to be civilian government away from military government. And to achieve that, you need to have civilian authority over military authority. He believes it at his core, that if you use military means to assume government, then you would govern militarily. But back to the Nairobi matter, I just returned from Nairobi this morning. I had a chance yesterday to talk to some people who are familiar with the matter itself. I think we have a coalition of problems. The first coalition of the problems is that increasingly every election, Uganda's politics become securitized. Security bulwarks are often engaged in operations to prove, even to no end, that there is armed insurrection about to happen because of political contestations. In the last elections, that was put on Bobi Wine and his team. The elections before that, it was put on Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye and the P10. The elections before that, it was Besigye and the PRA. So the problem is not just Besigye alone. The problem is also the securitization of our politics. I think that a person in the mold of Dr. Kizza Besigye, or any person that intends to lead Uganda, can have as many conversations as they want with as many people. In fact, I don't find anything treasonous in what he said. If a person leads a movement in the mold in which Besigye leads a movement, I don't see anything fundamentally illegal in what he's saying. He's basically discussing in the audios that we've had, whether they are true or not. He's discussing with the person who intends to execute whatever they intend to execute in Uganda. Now, does Besigye in and of himself, after that meeting, intend to use that information towards the prosecution of a civil war in Uganda? Yeah. I do not think. Besigye has had... No, but Andrew, let me also make this point. Besigye...
5 minutes.
Yes, the point that I want to make is that Besigye had mobilized the Forum for Democratic Change, which had been demobilized by the NRM, and mobilized a new political unit called the PFF. He could have mobilized that PFF unit to be a military unit if he intended to have armed insurrection. Why then would he spend all that money in a political unit?
Magala, did you listen to the audios?
Yes, I did listen to the audios, but I am not so sure if they are true or not.
Okay, let's begin assuming that they are true.
But if they are true...
I have a 98% confirmation that they are actually not AI generated. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what your source is, because other political commentators have been saying that they are AI generated 70%. But let's assume that they are true. This is where I'll disagree with my brother Raymond, that when you listen to those audios, actually they are treasonous. So if the state...
Why do you say they're treasonous?
They are plotting against the government. They are plotting to blow up a president's jet. They are saying we have allies in the air, in the army and the air forces. So if you're a state operator and you listen to these audios, definitely they are against the law, and they have every right, if they are true, to charge him under all these laws. Let me say the UPDF Act, the Firearms Act. When you see the charge sheet itself, it says he was in possession of rifles, pistols that belong to the UPDF. He can truly be charged under the court martial, the general court martial. He can as well.
I find that one the weakest part. Okay.
In which sense? Because the law provides for leave.
Oh, no, what I'm saying is, Besigye moved from here to Nairobi, went through an airport. They didn't see these pistols in the airport, or they were already in Kenya and he found them there. If the UPDF guns he found in Kenya, by whatever it means, he was not with them in Uganda. You cannot commit a crime of having a UPDF gun in Kenya. I don't think so.
So in the sense that while in Kenya transacting his business, it proves to be injurious to the security of Uganda.
You can plot treason wherever you are.
Yes.
But if I went and killed a person in Kenya, I cannot be accused of murder in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be treated. But it's only treason that is cross-border, because wherever you plan it, it is treason.
Exactly.
Whether you plan it inside Uganda or outside.
But as Raymond had said initially, that the way this transaction was made, the abduction, it was designed to fail. But the government has already scored. In which way? That, first of all, for me, I believe it is intended to cripple political business of the former FDC, the FDC at Katonga. They will have a lot of time to battle the legal cases and have less time to prepare for 2026.
Politics. Okay.
Yep.
Now I want to come to my own experience. It's always difficult to know to establish the chain of causation. For example, each time Museveni has employed excessive violence against his opponents, the voter turnout has increased and the share of the opposition presidential candidate has gone up. You can see it in 2006, Museveni employed violence against Besigye. Voter turnout was 69%. Besigye grew from 26 to 36. In 2011, Museveni used money, never beat up Besigye. Voter turnout fell to 58. Besigye got 26%. But in 2016, Museveni increased violence. Voter turnout went up, and Besigye's share of the vote moved from 26% to 36%. But of course, I have this problem with chain of causation. Does Museveni's use of violence anger many people who show up to vote against him, or does Museveni's use of violence, is it instigated by the fact that he realizes the momentum and the wave is against him and he wants to stem it? What causes the other? But I want to come to you. Don't you think it is attempts to arrest Besigye are likely to give him greater profile if you're going to allow him to run in the election?
Actually, that's what I wanted to ask. Is Besigye the person that Museveni would be fearing for the coming elections? Is that the identification that has been made, that this person has rejuvenated himself, his profile is up? The new party, you called it what? PPF. PFF. I called it PPF. The new
Please
political
don't call it RPF.
PLU.
Neither of that.
So the point is, what kind of intelligence have they been able to gather that shows them that at this particular point, the threat that Museveni would get politically when it comes to election is going to be Besigye? Is it something
I saw an article written by Charles Onyango Boy, Conspiracy Theory, where Charles was arguing that maybe the government wants to prop up Besigye to overshadow Bobby Wine, because Bobby Wine is a bigger problem than Besigye. They know how to handle Besigye better than Bobby Wine. You saw that?
Yes, I did.
So maybe the human rights mujahideen could explain to us.
How is that?
Because I also feel like Besigye has lost his traction. Bobby Wine is the new kid on the block, although Bobby Wine has proven to be a very ineffective leader of the opposition, in which case Museveni must be enjoying himself. Therefore, why give Besigye this profile?
So, why would Museveni prop up Besigye? Or is it inadvertent? His aim is not propping him up, but trying to demobilize him, but it ends up bringing him up. Besigye himself.
It is true. Besigye was plotting the treason, and his audios are authentic.
But let me ask: would any opposition, if they had the capacity, wouldn't they plot against the government?
Yes, they would.
I keep insisting, if you are a leader of an opposition movement in Uganda without the capacity and scale of influence to know state structures, if you assumed government tomorrow, who are you going to talk to? You must talk to people who are inside, who are running the state. So, in fact, you'd be an ineffective opposition leader if you do not have people inside the state who are giving you information.
Besigye has argued that the struggle is non-violent. It's not military. It's
in those audios is arguing for violence over
but
the government.
That audio, I think it's you're saying that I don't think it's. I've talked to people who are in IT, very experts. They've said with AI now you can do anything. It's very.
So I should tell you guys, I have used 3 different routes to establish whether these audios are AI generated, and there are 2 responses I have. Close to 90%. There is no AI, and 2, they are not even because you can manipulate conversations from different. You can manipulate audios from different conversations and patch them together, but they're also not manipulated.
But you said you had 3 different sources. What does the third say?
All of them.
Anyway,
all of them confirm that they are neither manipulated audios, neither are they generated by AI.
Yeah, but
AI can do that.
The statement of facts, at least,
but you can tell.
Yeah, the statement of facts that we've had from people who have met Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, who've spoken to him since his arrest, is that he was in Nairobi, for Martha Karwa's book launch. He left his hotel to go and meet people in an apartment. True, he met a British national together with another person who's not identified. The meeting didn't last long. In the process of the meeting, people knocked on the door, opened, and arrested them inside.
So we have taken an ad break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to this edition of the Hot Seat, featuring a panel of the most experienced journalists and panelists to discuss the major events of the week. I have Jimmy Odoki, Dismas Sinkunda, Rogers Magala, and Raymond Mujuni. So let me begin with you, my guy with the Taliban. Do you think the human rights mujahideen, in your view, do you think Besigye was plotting? Do you believe these audios?
Have you listened? Not entirely, because I'd seen debates around it. Some people read it saying no, it's AI generated.
What do you believe? Do you believe the guys who say AI?
I think Besigye, being a military soldier, would know what to discuss where. He wouldn't talk carelessly like that.
So you think these are?
And I don't think he's interested in war and anything. His is a non-violent approach to getting Museveni out of power, but not using military means. At his age, he has been NRA, so the war. Would you want to start war at this time?
What is the question?
Would you think Besigye would do planned treason at this time?
Was it consciously planning treason or trying to get a way of removing a government? Those are two different things, right?
Any unconstitutional removal of government is treasonous.
It's treasonous. Okay, I do.
If it does not succeed, of course,
I do. Like Jimmy, I honestly haven't had. I looked at them and say, with AI, anything can happen in this country.
So you doubt them? Magala, do you believe them?
I don't believe them.
Do you believe them, Raymond?
I have no cause to doubt them, actually.
So you believe them?
I believe that the audios could have. I do not know the extent of the authenticity, but that's a conversation that would genuinely happen between a person running for presidency.
So I can set my position. First, upon hearing them without testing for AI, knowing the message and all this, I believed them with the lingering skepticism that maybe it could be AI, and then tested them, and the people who checked them for me said, this is not manipulated audio, and neither is it AI generated. But this is what I can say. I don't think that if government thinks it can use these to change the minds of anyone who supports Besigye, they're unlikely to. As you can clearly see, the three of you don't even believe them. Government of Uganda does not have high levels of credibility in these things. In any case, everybody knows that Museveni has always accused everyone who tries to challenge him of treason. So I don't know whether, therefore, it would be either we are speaking as elites, we do not understand how this kind of audio affects an ordinary person, but I feel like this case, if I was an advisor of government, I cannot use it for purposes of undermining message, because there are two sides in an election. You have people who are decided hostile to you. You cannot do anything to change their mind. There are people who support you. Those are your fanatical supporters. Those are the ones who used to be your volunteers. Then there's the undecided voters. Those are the people that need convincing. If you have to do any action on your opponents, it is to divide, penetrate, divide, regiment, confuse, discourage them, so that they don't show up to vote. Because they're angry, I see that because of AI today, they study these algorithms, they study people's personalities. This one is neurotic, this one is narcissistic, this one is this. Then they can manipulate on your social media certain messages that make you feel disrespected or unrespected or disregarded in your noob group. Then you get angry and don't show up to vote. So that is a disorganization campaign. So in this case, I want to look at the undecided. How many undecided people would think that these audios are genuine? And I think they are. But for me, the proper thing, therefore, I believe that the government of Uganda's intention is of publicizing these audios is to win the war of public, to solidify its own supporters, to see Besigye in that light, but not to win.
Yes, Andrew, let's not underestimate these events. We are focusing so much on the audios. Let us look at whatever the engagement was about. When you listen to what Byanyima was saying, that when the security personnel bumped into the room, there was a box of money and guns. So leave the audios. Okay, let's say the audios were true. Then what happens to the guns? Fine, it could have been a staged plot, but it gives government the legitimacy to try him for whatever reasons they have. So for the people that have listened to the audios and are still seated at the fence, now when the evidence come in that he had a box of money, because Byanyima said Besigye didn't want money, they hadn't even talked about the money.
What's wrong with
there was
money?
Exactly, it gives legitimacy to the charges.
Anyway,
No, Andrew,
it is
Exactly, because when you look at the charges,
yes.
when you
on
look
the
at
black
the
market,
charges,
how do you procure arms?
But
on the black market, you cannot pay for arms using a check.
Besigye wasn't carrying money. He found the money there.
That's what he says.
Yeah.
That's what his wife says.
Anyway, Andrew,
I think the CMI, DIS plan, the Chieftains of Defense Intelligence and Security, their plan is to say he had the money to pay for guns. If they planted them, that money there, that was the purpose of what they wanted, because I have even video recordings of this.
And the pistols to charge.
I think, Andrew, we should discuss two things separately. We should discuss the politics of the case separate from the statecraft that comes with the case. I think the arrest of Besigye was a conduct of statecraft, which is intelligence services working and operating on their own, finally leading themselves to a place where they feel convinced that they can conduct an arrest in the manner in which they conducted it. I think if I were running intelligence, I would ask myself some fundamental questions. For me, in a country like Uganda, any opposition leader here, whether it's Bobi Wine or Besigye, would have courier messaging from heads of state within EAC, heads of state outside of EAC, businessmen looking to make business here. People reach out to those people because they understand them to be either enablers or hinderers for their business abilities. I would worry that I am being led to believe things that appeal to my innate ability. If I were a third-party state, for example, intending that the securitization of the Ugandan state would give me an edge, leading the Ugandan state towards trying an opposition leader that they already have preconceived bias about, leading them into that loophole is not a problem. So the question also is, this British national, what were the intentions beyond the fact that DIS might have known about it? And if DIS knew about the British national, are they convinced that he is acting in the interest of only the Ugandan state? Because now...
Okay, let me clarify the following things.
Yes.
I think the British national was... Besigye was lured into that meeting by a close friend whom he trusted. The British national was actually working on behalf of DIS, the Chieftains of Defense Intelligence and Security. He had been hired there, and Besigye was led into that trap. Perhaps what we can discuss, is it possible for Besigye to do that?
No, the question is, who was Besigye meeting?
Yeah.
Is it the British national?
Also,
or there was another person?
Also, if a British...
The British national was one of the persons allegedly supposed to be supplying him arms. That's the person he's talking to.
Andrew, and you know this, if a British national were negotiating an arms deal in Africa with guns in the room and money in the room, they definitely are in trouble in their own home country. Now that it
depends on
public information.
Or what.
Now that it's public information, because you have invited many other states to be interested in the case. I am keen to have our DIS start to interrogate. Why is it that they are being led to believe their own preconceived biases? Because it's now easy. First, they have a bias that Besigye is against the state of Uganda. They do not need to prove that anything else. No. They have a preconceived bias.
It's not just a bias,
yes.
Raymond. I think that intelligence has been following Besigye closely, and that's why I wanted us to put this in this context. I think Besigye has Besigye and Museveni are very much alike, by the way. Besigye has Museveni has an obsessive desire to stay in power, whatever the cost, under whatever circumstances. Besigye is determined to wrestle that power from Museveni at all costs and by all means. So you should know that. And therefore you have this battle where one person must destroy another. Between the two of them there cannot be negotiation, no compromise, no nothing. That is the position the two of them tend to take. They are very much alike. Besigye, having tried electoral competition and failed, having tried rebellion failed, having tried the populist election failed, it doesn't surprise me that he would retreat back to armed insurrection, because in that audio he's clearly stating that the army is divided. He's likely to get such information and also believe it. And the intelligence people here know him.
Andrew, again, probable cause. Conducting the civil war in which arms are being supplied outside of a landlocked country requires that the countries that supply that landlocked country must be in the know. The NRA here.
That NRA.
Yes, the NRA didn't
struggle here.
Moi knew about it. Museveni writes about it.
Yes, but they can.
Moi's deputy has told us, for all intents and purposes, Museveni and Moi met multiple times.
You should read about the trafficking of small arms in this region.
Yes, but light arms have very little that they can do for you within the Ugandan state.
Because Besigye says there is a huge discontent and divisions in the army and in the air force, and his plan is not just an external attack; it is to precipitate and exploit these internal fissures in the UPDF to cause an armed uprising.
And then that's not a Besigye problem. Then that's an internal army problem.
No. Besigye is the catalyst to that
That's
problem.
An internal army problem. So the opposition you're dealing with is internal.
Raymond,
yes,
there can always be latent anger, what we would call the piling up of social dynamite in the army, in the society. But there may be the lack of a spark, the supply of effective leadership and organization to catalyze latent social discontent into active political resistance. So what Besigye's role is to transform a latent or deep divisions in the army, give them kinetic energy so they can actually become active military rebellion.
No, Andrew.
That's what Besigye is saying.
You have interrupted with the...
But let's take another break. We'll be right
I was
back.
about to do it myself.
Welcome back to this edition of the Hot Seat, featuring my grandson here from the Mujahedin of the Human Rights Mujahedin, Jim Odoki, Dismas Sinkunda, Rogers Magala, and Raymond Mujuni. So I want us guys to come to what we're discussing about the probability that Besigye, you guys don't believe that Besigye could be involved in something like this. I believe that he would, because I think that Besigye and Museveni are very much alike. They have this, when they enter battle, it's no retreat, no surrender.
So, someone has asked you a question. Yes. He has said, Nathan Ariho has said, I'm listening. Ask him, Nenda, about the Bobby Wine guns which were found in the room in Arua. Where are they? Does he remember Chakua case, the rape case? The former prosecutor is now the Electoral Commission chairman. Does that make sense in the current?
So I'm going to speak in Rutoro, and Raymond Mujuni will
translate.
The Matora was saying that Akana Karra Tkai Horhazi.
The child that cries. I don't know the other part.
Horhazi is a red ant.
A red ant, yes.
A child who keeps crying when cannot be saved from an ant when it's biting it, because people say, that's one is always crying. So because I think, yes, because they've always done this, even if it were true, they lack the credibility for people to believe them. You know what I mean? So in that sense, that person who sent that text message, in that sense, is right. Because NRM has ruled through falsification, subterfuge, manipulation, lies, all these kinds of things. I think that people don't believe anything they may try to throw at somebody, even if it were true. So it is like that child who was always crying, so that even when genuinely there is a red ant biting the child, people say, you leave that one.
So it's the same with the government, or with Museveni in particular?
Well, Museveni is the government, and the government of Museveni.
Yeah, but Andrew, the point I had made really is, if indeed Besigye is going to conduct a civil uprising through military intrigue.
Not civil uprising, a military uprising, that's what is brought
through. Yes, but through intrigue. This is what you're saying.
Through disruption.
Of course, that's what intrigue is. Then these audios and the discussion of them, the fact that the Ugandan military believes them, is actually serving its purpose. Because the Ugandan army is a fit-for-purpose army. It has capacity to fight out of area, it has capacity to fight urban warfare, it has capacity to fight in mountain areas, it has capacity to survive in deserts. That is a very difficult army to fight against, as many other entities have found.
Remember Besigye's position
is
that army including his own air force, is heavily divided. So it is not.
It doesn't.
It is an internal rebellion.
It doesn't matter.
He wants to precipitate.
The logistical difficulty of causing internal rebellion in an army itself is what we are discussing. This is what I'm asking the CMI to do. Probe it and say, okay, let's say Besigye succeeds. The head of the Air Force believes Besigye. Tomorrow he authorizes a Sukhoi jet to fly over State House, bomb State House, Museveni is inside, and he dies from there, and then we have internal intrigue. What does that actually achieve in the short term for Besigye? Does it give him state power?
Absolutely.
The people he's cooperating with.
Does the Special Force Command immediately salute him? Does state authority from all corners of Uganda, east, west, north, the 5 divisions of Uganda, collapse?
Think that way?
No, you cannot. And this is why I'm telling you that even if Besigye thought that way, the people who are intendedly speaking to him about starting civil war within Uganda, you have to ask the question: where has civil war succeeded within East Africa in landlocked countries?
Not even
Uganda
that.
can be the first.
I don't think if Museveni had asked him that question, he would not have launched the civil war in Uganda.
The state has to first break down fundamentally for you to even start the civil war and survive.
For me,
if you are convinced like Besigye that the army is heavily divided, which Besigye is convinced about, Besigye is also convinced that there is widespread public discontent in Uganda. Besigye is also, by the way, I should tell you, about 2 months ago, in September, I think, I went to visit Besigye. I stayed with him a whole day, from 10 a.m. to about 3 p.m. We had lunch, and we were both sharing my own personal concern that there has been governance atrophy in Uganda, that the Ugandan state has become increasingly personalized, and because of vested interest, it is incapable of projecting any grand vision for the country, so it only responds to pressures from mobilized demand groups, lobbyists around State House and stuff like that. So we are in a governance quagmire, and Besigye, from the impression I got, he believes, at that time he did not discuss the military, but with me, he believes there is widespread social discontent. So if you believe 70% of Ugandans are angry with the government, and about 90% of urbanized, educated, the most articulate sections of the society are despondent, the UPDF is not a colonial army from outside. It springs and it is fed and nourished by Ugandan society. So the frustrations of the Ugandan society actually affect the UPDF. If you look also at the UPDF, I think Uganda, especially in the south, we have eliminated grass-thatched houses. The only people who live in grass-thatched huts in Uganda are UPDF soldiers and police. So the armed forces are the most poorly housed, most poorly fed.
But they are still loyal to the government.
So that's what I'm saying.
Why does it happen?
That's what you think.
Why does it happen?
Maybe they divert us from the discussion. What I want to give you is the mental frame from which Besigye is thinking. If Besigye looks at these things, he realizes that this army, he is likely to calculate that this army is ripe for mutiny, is ripe for insurrection. And given wide public support, especially concentrated support in cities by educated elites who control public opinion, and given the internal fissures in the army, it is possible that he can catalyze this rebellion. I'm sure there are soldiers he has talked to. They can catalyze the rebellion and hoist him onto State House, and the SFC will salute him.
I think that argument...
I cannot put it beyond Besigye.
That argument will not suffice.
I thought the army commander is your friend. You think this thing can happen?
No, it cannot happen. Andrew, why I say it cannot happen is... For as long as the president...
Guys, I want to hear this. I want you to know that I am not discussing whether it can happen. I'm trying to discuss where Besigye stands.
Yeah.
Where Besigye is. First of all, you should know that Besigye is particularly deluded on many things. In fact,
that's a strong word.
Yes, he is. He has many delusions that he tends to exaggerate the vulnerabilities of the Museveni system. It's true, Museveni has lost traction in Uganda, but I don't believe that UPDF is as divided as he thinks, and that can be used as an instrument against Museveni. Museveni has effective personal control over it. You cannot move a gun or a soldier without him grabbing.
I think, Andrew, I agree
that's
with
what I was
that.
discussing.
Yes.
But that analysis is different from Besigye's personal delusions.
Maybe using the word delusion is not good. You can respect him.
No, but I have been struggling to show Andrew that Andrew has made a fundamental case against Besigye and Besigye's delusions. I want him to also start to listen to the biases of the people who are against Besigye and point out to them and say, maybe there are things you are not seeing and someone is leading you to a slaughterhouse. I mean, I would wonder, for example, when Uganda was structurally at war with Sudan, for example, I don't think that Omar al-Bashir met Besigye at any one point. But I am so sure that Omar al-Bashir did benefit in some way or the other from Besigye's opposition.
Omar Bashir was meeting Konyi.
The two needn't meet. Yes, they needn't meet, but someone can see that there are things, for example, I say I can dissuade Andrew from a point by giving him 7 books. And then because I've given him 7 books, he will spend 4 days reading those books. In these 4 days, when his attention is away, I will have a chance at success. This is what the Ugandan state is suffering right now, that they're listening to innate biases and trying to confirm those biases increasingly is taking them away from the areas where the actual competition is. Actual contestation in Uganda is still going to be urban versus rural voters. I doubt it will boil down to the ballot. Many people do not think the ballot can deliver.
Raymond, that again, then you don't factor Museveni into this equation. And let's take another book. When we come back, we're going to discuss Museveni's own mindset and how Museveni sees threats and how he responds to them. Because Museveni does not underestimate any enemy, however weak he may be. Welcome back to this segment of this edition of the Hot Seat, featuring Dismas Nkunda, Jimmy Odoki, Rogers Magala, and Raymond. So, guys, we were discussing when we're going to. Raymond gave a long dissertation about how UPDF's biases are misguiding them.
When he has just finished his master's, so it must be part of his dissertation.
Yes. And I just want to put this on the table that we discuss it. I have this belief that it does not matter how weak an opponent is. All of us may say this is a very small threat, but Museveni will always come with a gun to, what do they call it?
A hammer.
He will come with a
gun to a knife fight.
And there's a knife fight. Museveni will come with, a Humvee.
Some machine.
Yes, he does not underestimate any form of threat. He tends to exaggerate threats, overreact all of them. Which must be psychologically exhausting. I don't know how he manages at his current age of 80. But so in this case, if CMI have that kind of measure of Besigye, regardless of whether it's feasible or not, how is Museveni likely to respond in those circumstances in this mass?
To respond to what? To
information that Besigye is planning an insurrection.
But that one, I think he knows it in his head that if Besigye had a chance, he would do it anyway. Yes. So it wouldn't be any surprise of him hearing what they have said. The only thing that we said, the three of us, is whether these audios are authentic enough, and we are waiting to see the court process.
Okay, let me assume that whether authentic or not really doesn't matter. States don't act on the basis of truth. They act on the basis of the intelligence they believe. And as Raymond said, normally we have what we call confirmation bias. If you think Andrew Mwende is a very bad man, and they come and tell you that he just raped the other girl, you are likely to believe it because it is confirming your bias. So if you come and tell Museveni Besigye was brought,
first find out.
I have. You verify.
And that's the problem, because you'll be looking for information that confirms he raped it, not that differs.
Yes. Yes, Jimmy.
I'll respond. You read on our book,
yes.
Cheers and Triumph. It says Museveni uses 3 things for survival, for ruling, staying in power for long. Vigilance. So I think he never, constant vigilance.
It is Museveni who says it, quoting Chairman Mao Zedong of China. Constant suspicion, yes. Constant mistrust, constant mobility, and constant vigilance.
Yes.
Those are principles of a guerrilla, actually.
So, Andrew, when you listen to one of the audios, Besigye's audios, he says that when they asked him about Bobi Wine, he believed that he seems not to be the right person to head the revolution against Museveni. That was Bobi Wine. And I also believe that when you put the two leaders, Bobi Wine and Besigye, I think you will side with Besigye. He is more organized to stage a revolution against the NRM establishment successfully than Bobi Wine. So this is why I say that if Museveni is to get worried about the two, I think he'll get more worried about Besigye. So you don't have to give any chance to... when it comes to insurrections, you don't have to give Besigye a chance. A person that was...
But you remember the insurrection, the fear of the insurrection of Bobi Wine and his urban following?
Yeah,
but necessarily doesn't have to be military.
That is explained by the conception of Ugandans when it comes to disruption. Okay, the moment they deploy police, people will be back into their houses, which is different when it comes to the Kaira style of insurrection, disruption, staging roadblocks, killing specific people. That is different.
That one cannot happen in Uganda.
My own view is that this is not now. I want to put myself away from Museveni's shoes and look at an analyst. I find, although Besigye is a very courageous person, very consistent, very principled to the point of actually being flexible, I also think that Besigye lacks strategic sense. Because, first, let me give an example of elections. Besigye is the leading campaigner in Uganda that elections don't matter, that elections can't bring about change, and yet he participates in elections. So you have read he's the leading candidate in helping Museveni discourage Ugandans from going to vote, because they believe if 85% of Ugandans showed up to vote, it's unlikely that Museveni can manage to rig and stay in power. And if the population of Uganda shifted away from Museveni, it's unlikely that UPDF would stick with him. They're likely to advise him that, the time has come. Because UPDF is a very different kind of institution. And the security people here, if they felt that the ground has really shifted, they are likely to give him advice. So Museveni needs a certain critical mass of Ugandans to be behind him for him to retain power. That is one. The second, so Besigye shoots himself in the foot when he campaigns elections as a vehicle for change. Even if he didn't believe so, he should not tell his supporters. He needs to encourage people to go out and vote. The second thing, where I think Besigye lacks strategic sense. So when he abandoned armed rebellion and had already dismissed elections as a form of change, as a vehicle for change, elections are dismissed. Armed insurrection, he removed it. So he went to popular insurrection, civic insurrection. When you watch Walk to Work and other insurrections he was trying to precipitate, Besigye tended to protest for the right to protest. He turned protest into an end in itself rather than a means to an end. Because if the problem is food prices or whatever it is inflation, whatever you're protesting in the country, I would suspect that you must use protest as a vehicle to force government to negotiate with you and get concessions so that you show your constituents that you're able to deliver something. But when Besigye was asked by a journalist, okay, so there is a lot of inflation, you are protesting this inflation, what do you want the government to do? He had nothing to say. So it means that I think in his obsessive desire to remove Museveni from power, the issues that should be animating, the policy issues that should be animating the struggle have disappeared from his mind. And the objective of Museveni leaving power has become the end rather than a means to an end. Because the end could be an economically prosperous and a politically democratic Uganda. That's the end. So removing Museveni is on the means. But when removing Museveni becomes the end in itself, then you are blocked from the various things you can do so that even when Museveni is not removed, you can advance the cause of expanding democratic space, you can improve the quality of the policy environment, because this may require negotiating with the government, because democracy and its growth sometimes comes in conflict with the state, but sometimes comes from collaboration with the state. So I found that Besigye as an individual was intellectually and emotionally constrained and didn't have a strategy. So he was involved in a fight which he's convinced is good without an overarching strategic aim. I want to hear what you guys think. And that is why lacking that strategic aim, and the aim now has become removing Museveni as if it's an end in itself. That's why it led him to that place where now we must even kill him.
But what's wrong with him believing in his strategy? That's what he thinks.
No, I'm saying...
Must he change it simply because we are discussing it, or that's what fits him?
He has chosen 3 strategies. The first was elections. It failed. Then he said, okay, the second path to removing the government is going to be armed insurrection. It failed, PRA. Then he said it will be popular insurrection. It failed. But in each one of them, I feel...
What if this one he thinks it's going to work?
In 1999 to 2000, I felt he saw the removal of Museveni as a means to an end, because he could articulate an end at that time. But along the way, his obsessive desire to remove Museveni from power blinded him to the fact that the removal of Museveni is just a means to an end, and he needs to articulate that end. What is the end that you want? What is the Uganda that we know what Besigye is against? What does Besigye stand for? Please, you explain it to me.
Better governance.
What does he want?
Better governance.
What does that
better
mean?
Country.
Yes. What does that mean? Because those are abstract things.
No corruption, better economy, no.
Yes, but how do they come about? Because there must be a series of either institutions, policies, actions, processes, systems that facilitate your ability to deliver on such a promise.
But Andrew, I think elements? Whichever person it is, whether Bobby Wine, Besigye or Bobby Wine or any other person, or you yourself, it could be very hard for you to bring about this change, especially when the President Museveni is still in power. So even the collaborations,
Okay, but let me agree, Roger, that we may not be able to remove Museveni from power, but we can achieve so many things even when he's in power. Whether at the level of policy, at the level of laws, at the level of institutions.
For as long as what you vie to achieve is not against the establishment of the NRM.
I wouldn't worry.
We have run out of time. Next time we shall come and discuss this matter. Thank you so much, our listeners, for joining us, and my partner, you have been very good. All of you have a big hug. Good evening.